Good evening, everyone. Nice to see all of you. I didn't brush my teeth. That's why they're all sitting back. I'm kidding. I did brush my teeth. Thank you for being here. I can take no credit for the talk tonight as far as the content. It's all from chapter 3 of the Spirit's book. I will take a little bit of credit for picking the title, though, the topic. My daughters, I have 3 young girls, 11-year-old, and the twins are almost 10. They had their first experience with the death of a human, a close friend of the family. So the first time's always hard, So it opened up memories of losing my grandfather when I was a kid, which was very traumatic. It opened up questions that they were asking me that was I answering them correctly? Was I helping them? Was I hurting the situation? So I thought it was time to visit the fundamentals and talk about the loss of the body. Is that the end? The loss of the body? No, right? Are we humans with a soul, or are we souls tied to a human body? What do you think? Souls tied to a human body, right? Spirit tied to a human body. We live forever, thank God, or maybe not. Depending on how you look at it, I guess. But no, seriously, wonderful. The spirit is eternal. This body, however, this envelope that we're using for a few years here on earth, as humans, will perish one day. It happens for all of us. It's the way it is. It's the law. So let's talk about that a little bit and see what the Spirit's book teaches us. What does the soul become at death? And the simple answer, right? It's very straightforward. It becomes a spirit again. It returns to the world of spirits that it left for a time. In other words, think of our body as a prison of our spirit, right? It's kind of tied to it. It's jailed. It doesn't have freedom. And when this body dies, your spirit goes home. Right? It's free, not tied to the body, not tied to earth anymore. So I threw in some pictures. That's a neat one, isn't it? So walking the earth in 1 minute and then liberated slowly the next.
It's like the DNA sign
Yeah, it was, right? Very cool. Question 150 of the Spirit's book asks, does the soul preserve its individuality after death? Obviously, as humans, right, we're individuals. We have even though we're made from the same material, we breathe the same air, we need similar nutrition. We're all very different, very individual. Does that end after death, right? Absolutely not, right? Our spirit never loses its individuality. Even though we lose the body, the perispirit that connects this body to the spirit is intact, and it remains that way. It doesn't lose anything. The physical body, the material aspect of life on earth definitely dissipates and is gone forever. Question 150 asks, does the soul preserve its individual after death? And the answer continues. With this death of the body, there's nothing more that we take other than our memories and the desire to go to a better world. These memories are full of sweetness or bitterness, depending on how the soul has lived its earthly life. That's the beauty of life, right? We have the ability to basically impact what happens when this life is over. Through our actions, through our thoughts, through the things we omit to do, through the things that we chose not to do, right? Right or wrong. We create how that transition is going to be. The purer this life we live, the more morally just this life we live, the more we help, the more we show compassion, the more we love, the less we live tied to material vice. It's going to be definitely an easier transition, and we'll talk more about that. The less tied that we are to the life we lived as far as material things, the easier and smoother that transition is going to be. But we'll jump into that a little bit more. All right, but the more we work together, the more we love everyone, the more we don't see each other as different, but see our commonality and work together without hatred, with love in our hearts, right? The easier that's going to be. Question 151 in the Spirit's book in chapter 3 asks, what about the opinion that the soul returns to the universal whole after death? That's similar to Hinduism, right, and Buddhism, like a dropping into the ocean, right? This universal whole. We're really all one. And I love the answer here because there's differences from philosophy to philosophy, from religion to religion, and I love how the mentors answer this question because they don't disagree, right? They don't say you're right, I'm right, or you're wrong, I'm right. It's a very beautiful answer. It says, don't all spirits taken together make up a whole? Absolutely, right? We're all part of this universal whole. When you are in a group, you are an integral part of it, no doubt, right? And yet, you still retain your own individuality. In other words, when our soul returns to the universe, if you will, to the spirit world, absolutely we become a part of the whole, just like we are here. We're part of this whole society. But yet our individuality remains intact. We are different and unique as we live on earth, and obviously that stays the same after death. It's different, but it's the same. We definitely have our individuality. We don't melt into this one big puddle, if you will. So 152 asks, what evidence is there for the soul's individuality after death? And the answer we're given is it's obvious that we are dealing with distinct beings, for we meet good and evil spirits, knowledgeable and ignorant spirits, happy or downcast beings of all natures. They can be joyful, they can be sad, they can be frivolous, very serious, right? When we read some of these books, like this book, right, that's channeled from a spirit, when we experience messages from the other side, it's all types, right? All these different categories or personalities come through. So it's clear evidence that there's definitely individuality in the spirit world. It's not lost when we cross. And that continues with this, right? What evidence is there, again, for the soul's individual after death? And they continue with individuality becomes even more obvious when these beings prove their identity through unmistakable signs and verifiable personal details related to their earthly lives. There's that many instances of interviews and stories that you read, young kids, right, talking about previous lives where they list names and facts. Definitely verifiable. So definitely that uniqueness is confirmed. And again, I love that picture. I don't know why I put it there, other than we maintain that image of our body, even though it doesn't exist, but we're transitioning towards the light and maintaining our individuality at the spiritual level. But the body definitely disappears. Question 153 asks, in what sense would we understand the eternal life then? Right? If the body perishes, if that doesn't continue, what is this thing called eternal life? And the answer is, once again, very succinct, right? Only the life of the spirit is eternal, right? The life of the body is transitory and temporary. When the body dies, the soul returns to the eternal life. So we are a soul or a spirit, kind of locked or tied to a human body for this transient time, for this short duration of time. Whether we get 100 years or 40 years, whatever it is, it's nothing compared to the life of the spirit. Right? We die, it's like we're plucked out, right? The body disappears. And again, I just love that picture. But we definitely lose our form. Question 154. Is the separation of the soul from the body a painful process? Don't we worry about that, or haven't we worried about that? I can remember many sleepless nights after that first experience with my grandfather, losing him when I was a young boy, and just wondering, what did he feel? Right? My brother-in-law, 52 years old, had a heart attack last week. Right? He's okay, but what's the first thing I asked him after? Hey, you okay? I said, how'd it feel? Right? Still curious about what's going to happen. What's it going to feel like? Right? My daughters asked me that about our friend that passed. Right? Did she hurt? Did she feel pain? We want to know this, right? So as we go deeper beyond the material plane, does that separation of the soul from the body, is it a painful process? And very clearly we're told, no, not at all, right? Frankly, the body suffers more during life than at the moment of death. Isn't that beautiful? There's nothing to worry about. It's painless. There might be, I guess depending on how we depart physically, there could be some pain physically. But at the spiritual level, they tell us that there's usually more suffering during life than there is during death. The soul itself, we're told, feels nothing at death. Isn't that hopeful? Right? Does that lessen your concern about the end? I do. For me, it does, for sure. This is question 155 from the Spirit's book. How does the separation of the soul from the body occur? Right? You think about it. We die, right? And is it this quick separation? Is the body prepared over time? How does it happen, right? And what we're told here in 155 is once the bonds that held the soul are ruptured, it disengages itself. Happens very gradually. This can happen over days and hours, where the body, the perispirit, is being prepared by your spirit guides on the other side, your mentors that are helping everything separate. Essentially, the spirit disengages just little by little from these bonds. They unravel, we're told. It's not like they're cut or they don't pop or break. A lot of times we think about that perispirit, like what do they call it, a silver cord is a name given to it, right? You think about that maybe popping off or pulling out. And it's not a break. It's a very natural, slow unraveling of that bond to the body. Death, they tell us, is the destruction of only the body, right? Not the perispiritual envelope, which separates from the body when organic life ceases. Remember, the spirit that we are is with us, right? It's in the spirit world. We have the physical body here on earth, and then imagine a translucent silhouette of me or of you, kind of surrounding you, right? That's the perispirit they're talking about. That's connected through this invisible cord to your spirit. Everything that I do in my body, the choices that I make, the thoughts I have with my mind, leave an imprint on my spirit, which it's attached to, right? Never leaves that, right? It's always there. When the body dies and that cord or that perispirit separates, all of those actions, all of those experiences are tied to my spirit. And those are the things that we review, that we go through. The speed in which we make this separation, the speed at which we make that break really depends on how we lived our life, right? The more Christ-like we lived, right? He gave us the best example, right, in the gospel, the way he walked the earth, the way he lived, the choices he made. The more we live in that example, right, a morally upright life, if you will, the easier and the faster that transition will be. The more we're tied to material things, right? And think about all the things we're tied to. What do we worry about, right? Losing this, losing that, getting ahead. You name it. There's so many things that we tie ourselves to or could tie ourselves to. And if we're tied to vice, right, if we're addicted to anything and it's calling us and keeping us away from living a better life, it's going to take longer and it's going to be more difficult, more painful to make that switch. So what does that teach us? We can prolong it and put off following the great examples that we've been given, or we can choose to act sooner. The sooner we can flip the switch and the more consistent we can be to live that example that he gave us, we can lessen that process. It'd be less painful and an easier transition. This is my favorite picture, I think, when I think about transitioning, right? The butterfly coming from, wow, I can't even think of what the other thing is called. Thank you, the caterpillar, right? Right? Dying, transitioning into this beautiful butterfly. Free to go wherever it wants, right? To do whatever it needs to do. The body that was before that is gone, and now it's free. It's beautiful. So what sensation does the soul experience at the moment it realizes that it's in the spirit world? So now we're not talking about the body anymore, right? We answered the question about pain at death and pain in the spirit, but what is the experience at the moment the soul or the spirit realizes that it's in the spirit world? To me, I always thought it would be shocking. Like, man, one minute you're brushing your teeth or eating dinner, and then the next minute you died, and now you're back in the spirit world. Well, I love the answer, right? Because it varies, right? It depends. If that spirit had done evil for the love of it, in other words, that spirit while on earth in a body, if that was the type of person that took pleasure in hurting other people and gaining advancement at the expense of others, the first sensation will be being ashamed, be very painful, right? Because you have this reckoning, right? You have this understanding. You can't lie to yourself, right? It's there. It's evident. So you have this feeling of being ashamed because you made a lot of mistakes. If, however, that spirit lived a morally upright life, right, it feels relieved, like a great weight has been lifted, and has no fear. Because think about it, the whole purpose of this life on earth is to grow, right? And we come here with a plan of things we're going to accomplish, things that we were not able to overcome in previous lives. And if we followed that plan, if we were positive at actuating our intent, right, and we grew morally and we lived an upright life, it's like, wow, I made it, you know? It's like how I used to feel when I skydive, right? The parachute would open, it opened, right? I'm safe, right? Same idea in the sense that you passed the test, you survived, you made it, right? Now there's more to do, obviously, but the better we live now, the better choices we make now, the less ashamed we're going to feel when we realize we're back in the spirit world. Does that make sense? Awesome. How many of you think about that on a daily basis? Weekly? Monthly? I don't know. I've been coming here for, man, Gabriella is going to be 11, or she is 11. What am I saying? So it was shortly after we moved back to Florida, so at least 10 years. And I still do some of the same junk that I did 10 years ago. Even though I've been studying and I get up here and I talk a couple times a month, I'm still an idiot sometimes. Oh, that's too strong. I don't make the best choices sometimes. How's that sound? The problem is, now I know more, right? So I shouldn't say I don't suffer, but it hurts. When I make choices that I just know are not right, right? It has more meaning. It has more heavier weight on me as a person because I know I'm prolonging my growth. So in a lot of ways, I've grown, right? And I continue to grow. If I didn't have that guilt, if I didn't have that sensation, I'd probably still be making more mistakes. So little by little, I'm improving, right? It's just the more we learn, the more we study, the consequences on us, we just know more aware of them. So I share that with you simply because I'm doing my best at times, right, to try to lessen that feeling, because I know what it's going to be like. But I still drop the ball frequently, and it just hurts more than it used to because now I'm more aware. And now so are you, so we're in this together. Right? Sorry, guys. I lifted the veil, yeah? So we wake up in the spirit world, we're either more ashamed or less ashamed, depending on how we lived. The other question that my kids ask me, right, will I see her again? Will I see our friend again? So the question, 160, is the answer, right? Does the Spirit immediately meet those whom it knew on earth, those that died before, right? And the answer is yes. Depending on the affection they had for one another, those that have gone before almost always come to receive the Spirit striving to return to the spirit world. One of the mediums that was at our friend's transition, right, saw some of these family members waiting, helping, assisting, right? Shared that with us. What a wonderful affirmation, or a wonderful feeling, right? To know that that happens, right? You're not alone, right? Think about, many of you have probably gone to the Caravan of Love, right? We sing songs at nursing homes. A lot of those folks in those places have no one, yeah? They're alone, right? And they're going to die. In their mind, a lot of them alone. But we're not alone. We're always, always accompanied at the end, right? In that transition. I should say the beginning, yeah? To the next phase. We're greeted by a loved one that we'll recognize, that we cared about, that we know they cared about us, and they'll help us. They'll be there for us. That's beautiful. How about state of confusion after death, right? Upon leaving the body, is the soul immediately conscious of itself? Right? A little bit different question, right? Immediately is not the right word, yeah? It remains in a state of confusion for some time, right? So it's not like it just happens. There is some time, and I would imagine that confusion or that haze or that lack of knowing was going to be more and more contingent on how aware you are of these things before you go. So if I had not studied a lot of the things that I study, that I will continue to study, right, for years to come, hopefully, if I was the same guy I was 15 years ago, right, that never studied, right, that believed I controlled everything and the world was all about me, right, on my material journey, the confusion and the delay would be much longer for that old version of me than who I am today, right? Because I have more awareness, I have more knowledge of things to come, and I've reduced my ties to some extent to the material world. Does that make sense? How many of you want to be confused for a long time, or shorten it? Right? I want to shorten it as much as I can, man. I'm ready. I don't want to be confused. All right. Question 164. Just 2 more hours, okay? Can you guys stay with me? Yeah, you good? We need a break, or we good? We good? All right. All right, good. I'm almost done, I swear. Question 164. Do all spirits experience the confusion that follows the separation of the soul and body to the same degree and for the same amount of time? Well, that's an easy answer, right? Because whenever you take a test and they put the word always in there, you know it's usually false, right? That's what I could get this one easy, I thought. And sure enough, the answer is no, right? Because it's all variable, right? Even though we were created the same, right? In the first life, simple and lacking knowledge. And we've lived lots of similar lives, right? We similar worlds, similar bodies, similar experiences. We're all unique. We're all different. We all have our own experiences written on our soul, right? So it varies, right? It depends on how evolved they are, right? The more carnal the individual is, right, with impure conscience, the longer the confusion lasts. So again, the more we are tied to vice, the more we are tied to ego and pride. You know what ego stands for? Did I ever tell you this one? EGO? Edging God out, right? EGO, ego. The more we live in our ego, in our pride, right? You're not connected to God as much, right? You can't be egotistical, and you can't be like, I'm the best and I know everything and I rule the world, and still be connected to God, right? They're not one and the same. It's like being full of rage and hate and trying to love, right? They're opposite. I think you have to experience opposites to understand perhaps what the other is, but you can't do both at the same time. So the less you're tied to the material life, the less you're tied to, the more, let's flip it, right? Let's talk about the positive. The more you're tied to things that are pleasing to your soul, as opposed to things that are pleasing to your eyes and your senses, right? The shorter that time's going to be, that confusion's going to lessen significantly. The more evolved you are, the better moral life that you lived. All right. Does an understanding of Spiritism have any influence on the shorter or longer duration of this confusion? I hope so, because I put a lot of time into Tell me it's true, Waldo. That's right, you've been there, that's right. All kidding aside, though, they tell us it's plain and simple. It does, because the Spirit understood what its situation would be beforehand. Kind of like, even though we've got fancy phones and these great GPS systems, right? There's a difference between what somebody told you or a map and actually being there once, right? Having a picture or an experience. Somebody told you about it. You can look on a map or follow your GPS, or you talk to somebody who's been there, and you can kind of have a feel for where you're going. And that's kind of what we do, right? We know the destination. We're all going to get there at some point. But the more we study Spiritism, there's wonderful books in that bookstore. There's wonderful books in the library here that you don't even have to pay, that paint a beautiful picture of what's to come. Nasrullah is the first book my wife gave me when we met to learn about Spiritism, that and the Spirits book. Nasrullah is a beautiful book to read that paints a beautiful picture. Heaven and Hell is a wonderful book if you want to read stories of people that have gone before us and the lessons that they learned, right? There's some really tough stories in that book, right? But man, you want to get some advice and I remember that show, you guys are younger than me probably, but there's this show when I was a kid called Scared Straight, right? They would take juvenile delinquents, right? You kids that were misbehaving, and they put them in jail with hardened felons to scare them, right? Heaven and Hell's a lot like that, right? You hear some crazy stories about people that they just go through their situation and advise you on what not to do so that you don't have the same pain that they do. So we have the ability to understand where we're going. We have an instruction manual, several instruction manuals on how to live now to lessen our pain and our confusion, to shorten that period of being ashamed. And even more than that, remember, before you incarnated into this life, you made a plan. You sat down, or maybe you stood up, I don't know, right? But you made a plan. You knew all the mistakes you had made in that last reincarnation and all the issues from before that you were still working on. So you knew where you came up short, and you knew what you needed to do. And you made a plan. You're living that plan right now. It's ingrained in your conscience. And as you study, as you connect, as you do your best to follow the example that Christ gave us and live this morally just life, you're working that plan, because all that plan, you can have all different types of details. We all have our own unique experience in the things we're working on. But at the end of the day, the goal, right, that perfection that we're striving for is nothing more, nothing less than how Christ lived, right? Love. Love for all. Not just the people that are nice to you. Love for your enemy. Love for strangers, helping at every opportunity that you can. Doesn't mean you sell everything, doesn't mean you live under a bridge, it doesn't mean you never enjoy material success. But it means your overwhelming intention is simply loving the people around you and doing what you can to help and be positive and assisting. Not to take advantage, not to get ahead because of other people, not to ignore strife or misfortune, just to do your best to contribute as best as you can to those in need in any way that you can. And it all starts with love. Love for yourself, love for your immediate family, and being an example and loving the world around you. And that's why I love this next picture, right? We are trapped in this body, right? Our spirit would love to be free. But for whatever time we have, right? Whether we're that baby that dies at childbirth, or we're that old man that dies at 106, right? Everything in between, we create. It's an empty canvas, right? Why? Because God gave us free will, right? His laws, His code, is written in our conscience, right? We know right from wrong, whether we always see it or not. We know. And we have the opportunity every moment, every day, to paint the picture that we want for ourselves. And God willing, another day, we get to tweak it, we get to fix it, we get to try to correct it. But every moment we have a chance to paint the picture of our reality, to create our own reality. And follow that example or not. But it's unwritten. And ultimately, the best example, right, that we were given is not the way Christ died. Don't get me wrong, there's the crucifixion, the return, what have you. Very important, very significant. I don't want to make light of that. But I contend that it's not how Christ died or what happened a few days after, right, where he came back. That's very important, but not the most important, right? I think that for me, the significance of Christ, right, is the fact that he showed us how to live. The adversity he faced, the challenges he faced. Nobody made him come back to earth, right? He chose that reincarnation, right? He chose. Right? He's a perfect spirit. He had nothing to prove. He didn't have anything to work out, right? He wasn't like me, right? Like you. He's perfect. He came back because he loved us. He came back to give us an example. He came back to show the world that, yes, Moses' law, right, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, may have served you for that time. But you're ready, people. You're ready to love. You're ready to experience unconditional love. And I'm going to show you what that is. I'm going to feed the hungry. I'm going to heal the sick. I'm going to raise the dead. And I'm going to let them do whatever they do. And I'm not going to fight back. I'm not going to wish them harm. I'm not going to ask my Father to stop them. I'm going to walk the walk, right? I'm going to talk the talk. I'm going to teach you how to live. He gave it to us. Think about it. If you're not a Christian, if you're an atheist, if you, I don't know, believe in whatever you believe, right? Who cares? But if everybody on the earth, right, just lived like he did, who cares what they believe, right? If they just lived the way he lived, if they walked every day in his shoes and made the choices that he made, would we have world hunger? Would we have crime? Would we have atrocities? Would we have hatred? No. Doesn't matter what faith, what religion, right? We never talk about converting here, right? It's not about that, right? It's about our individual journey, about following his example, about growing. And if the whole world, right, just at the same time decided to live like him, would this be like a great place or what? It already is, but imagine how amazing it would be if we just lived like he lived. So that's my closing statement to you, is just do your best each day to be like Christ. Love yourself. Don't hold on to yesterday, right? All you have right now, I'm convinced the only real thing that exists, right, is right now, this moment. I can't change yesterday. And tomorrow is unwritten, right? I haven't put my pen to paper yet. Tomorrow is unwritten. So if I can just do my best to be authentic, sincere, loving, forgiving in each moment, then I'm getting closer and closer to that goal. So I thank you for your time and attention. I wish you all a wonderful evening, and may you please allow yourself to receive all of the wonderful blessings that are out there for you just by vibrating positivity. Thank you so much.